As the number of coronavirus patients continues to rise, a nationwide shortage of protective gear like face masks and gowns is leaving hospitals all over America scrambling. 6 on Your Side's Natasha Williams digs into what protections there are for medical personnel in Idaho.
Both Oregon and Idaho's boards of nursing say decisions related to PPE, or personal protective equipment, fall on the medical facility, and some of those decisions leave nurses in disagreement.
According to both St. Luke's and St. Alphonsus, the national shortage of PPE isn't hitting Idaho as hard as some other areas. But a local nurse says she's concerned about the supply.
I can't speak for everywhere, but I know that as of right now, it's being rationed, and that if we get an influx of patients in the hospitals and stuff, that we'll be just like all the other places that don't have what they need.
Medical personnel, like nurses, wear PPE while treating patients to protect themselves from the virus.
If all the healthcare workers aren't protected, then that means there's nobody to fight this.
But according to both the Idaho and Oregon state boards of nursing, guidelines surrounding PPE depend on which hospital you work for.
Now, with this current situation, emergency declaration, it's about the facilities and the hospitals following their guidelines and their rules and what they go by.
The Oregon State Board of Nursing says they've received reports of nurses refusing to treat patients because they disagree with the PPE guidelines where they work and they feel unsafe.
We had been hearing that some nurses were refusing assignments solely because their employer was utilizing OHA guidelines, that would be Oregon Health Authority guidelines, rather than WHO or CDC. They cannot refuse an assignment solely for that reason.
The Idaho State Board of Nursing agrees.
If a nurse says, well, I don't like this guideline, you should go by this other one, the nurse can't choose to do that. They must follow what the employer is saying.
But both the Idaho and Oregon State Boards of Nursing want to be clear. Nurses are protected under the Nurse Practice Act.
The Board of Nursing does not expect nurses to work without PPE. The Nurse Practice Act supports the ability of a nurse to refuse an assignment when they do not have the knowledge, skills, competencies, and abilities to accept it safely.
They must have the ability to perform this, so they must have the protective equipment. And that would be the same thing here.
As medical professionals spend long hours caring for COVID-19 patients, some are bound to get sick. Some such cases have already occurred in Blaine County. Coming up next week, we will show you how Idaho and Oregon boards of nursing are both working and adapting to make sure that they have enough personnel and staff to combat the coronavirus. Working from home, I'm Natasha Williams, 6 on Your Side.